Part 1. The Quiet Work of Grinding Grain. Soft intro. As evening settles across the old world, the day grows softer at its edges. The last light rests on mud brick walls, on packed earth floors, on quiet doorways, and on the rims of clay bowls waiting beside hearths. In many places, far apart from one another, hands are reaching into baskets of grain. The grain is dry, small, and ordinary. It slips between fingers with a faint whisper, then falls into a wooden scoop, or a clay dish, or onto a stone already worn smooth by years of use. There is no hurry here. The sun is going down beside rivers, over fields, beyond roofs of reed and tile and thatch. In one house, Emmer wheat waits near the Nile. In another, barley rests in a basket under the warm air of Mesopotamia. Elsewhere, wheat, millet, and simple household meal are measured, sifted, brushed, and covered for mourning. The work is humble. It is nearly invisible. Yet it continues, slowly and quietly, as it has continued for a very long time. Let your breathing become unhurried. Let each breath arrive like grain poured from a basket. Let each breath pass like flour dust settling on fingertips. Nothing important will be required. Nothing sudden will happen. Only the old, soft rhythm of stone against stone. Only bowls, baskets, lamplight, warm walls, and the quiet work of preparing food before sleep. The grain is ready. The stone is waiting. The evening has begun. Chapter 1. The Emmer Stone beside the Nile. Egypt, New Kingdom. In a modest mud brick house near the Nile, the evening light has almost left the doorway. The river is not far away, though from inside the house it is only a quiet presence, broad and darkening under the sky. The walls still hold the warmth of the day. They give it back slowly into the small room, where a woman sits near a low grinding stone and prepares Emmer wheat for the next day. Emmer is an old kind of wheat, sturdy and familiar, used in bread and beer, and the daily food of Egypt. It has already been cleaned. Someone has picked away small bits of chaff. Someone has shaken the grain in a basket until the lighter pieces drifted aside. Now the kernels lie in a shallow bowl, pale and dry, waiting beside the saddle quern. The saddle quern is a stone with a hollow worn into it from long use. A smaller rubbing stone rests in her hands. She places a handful of grain on the lower stone and begins to move the upper stone forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. The sound is low and plain, a slow scrape of stone against stone, a dry whisper as the kernels crack and flatten, a faint dusting of flour at the edge of the stone. A child sits nearby, not quite asleep, watching without much interest. The child has seen this work many times. There is nothing new in the way the grain is ground, nothing to ask about, nothing to hurry toward. The child's head lowers, rises a little, then lowers again. Outside, beyond the doorway, the evening air moves softly over the village. A dog barks somewhere far off once, and then the sound thins away. In the corner of the room, a clay jar of beer rests in shadow. Beer in Egypt is ordinary and nourishing, made from grain, thick and familiar, part of daily life. There is also bread from earlier in the day, cooling on a ledge. The bread is not fresh from the oven now, but still useful, still good, still part of the quiet household. A reed mat lies rolled near the wall. A small bowl waits beside the hearth. The room is filled with simple things that do not need to be noticed quickly. The woman pauses and brushes the flour toward the bowl. The flour is coarse at first. It catches on the roughness of her fingertips. A pale dust settles into the lines of her skin. She adds another handful of emmer and begins again. Forward and back, forward and back. The rubbing stone moves in the same path it has already taken many times. The lower stone receives the grain without complaint. The bowl receives the meal without sound. Near the doorway, the last warmth of the sun touches the floor and then grows dimmer. A small oil lamp is lit. Its flame is small and yellow, steady enough to see by, not bright enough to disturb the room. The lamp's glow rests on the grinding stone, on the curve of the clay jar, on the sleeping child's cheek. The house smells faintly of bread, beer, dry grain, and the warm clay of the wall. No one speaks for a while. The woman listens only to the stone. There is a rhythm in the small task, but it is not a song. It is only the shape of work repeated until enough has been done. Enough for a little bread, enough for the morning, enough to cover and set aside. When the last handful has been ground, she gathers the meal carefully. She taps the side of the bowl. A little flour slides down. She covers the bowl with cloth, not tightly, only enough to keep the dust away. The rubbing stone is placed beside the saddle quern. Its work is finished for the night. The child has fully fallen asleep now. The clay jar remains in the corner. The bread rests on the ledge. Outside, the Nile moves in darkness, too quietly to be heard from the room. Inside, flour dust settles on fingertips, and the warm wall gives back the last of the day. The stone is still beside the bowl, and the bowl is covered for morning. Chapter 2. Barley in the Courtyard. Mesopotamia. Old Babylonian. Far away from the Nile, in a southern Mesopotamian town, the evening gathers in a mud brick courtyard. The air is dry and heavy with the warmth left from the day. A wall of baked and unbaked brick encloses the small open space, and the bricks hold the sun long after the sun itself has gone down. The courtyard is not large. It has room for a low grinding stone, a few baskets, a water jar, a lamp, and the quiet movements of a household preparing food for tomorrow. A woman kneels beside a basket of barley. Barley is common here, dependable and familiar, well suited to the land between the great rivers. It may become meal for flatbread, or something thicker for a stew, or a plain food that fills a bowl and quiets the body. She takes a small handful and lets the grains fall back into the basket. They make a dry, soft sound. Not loud, only the whisper of grain poured from the palm. Nearby, a man brushes dust from the grinding stone. The brush is simple. The gesture is simple. He moves the dust away from the shallow, worn place where the grain will be crushed. Some of the dust is old flour. Some of it is courtyard earth. Some of it is only the fine powder that gathers wherever people do the same work day after day. The children are already lying on reed mats along one wall. They are not quite asleep. One turns over and pulls a fold of cloth under the head. Another watches the lamp for a little while. The lamp burns with sesame oil. Its light low and yellow, leaving the upper corners of the courtyard in shadow. The smell of the oil is faint. The smell of barley is fainter still. Together they make the air seem warm, ordinary, and slow. The first barley is poured onto the stone. The woman places the rubbing stone over it and begins. The movement is not fast. The stone presses down, slides forward, and comes back again. The kernels break unevenly at first. Some crack, some split, some roll aside and are guided back with the edge of her hand. The sound is steady, stone against stone, grain under stone, breath above stone. In the courtyard, no one counts the motions. There is no need to count. The hands know when the meal is coarse and when it is fine enough, and when another handful should be added. A clay bowl waits beside the quern. A second basket waits near the bowl. A water jar leans slightly against the wall, cool at its base, warm near its shoulder. Everything has a place, and nothing asks to be moved quickly. Beyond the courtyard wall, the town grows quiet. A gate closes somewhere along a narrow street. A donkey shifts its weight, and then is still. Farther away, someone speaks a few words that do not carry clearly. The words fade before they can become important. The lamp flame leans, straightens, and continues to burn. The barley continues to pass under the stone. After a while, the man takes the bowl and tips the ground meal through a simple sieve. The sieve is lifted and shaken gently. The larger pieces remain behind, to be ground again. The finer meal falls softly into the bowl below. It lands without drama, pale and rough, a little uneven, useful for the next day. Flour dust clings to the rim of the bowl. It settles on the heel of the hand. It settles on the packed earth near the knees. The woman adds the coarse pieces back to the stone. Again, the rubbing begins. Forward and back, forward and back. The courtyard seems to breathe with the motion. The children sink deeper into sleep. The sesame oil burns lower. The mud brick wall slowly releases the stored heat of afternoon. There is no festival tonight. No announcement, no visitor, no message carried through the street. Only barley, stone, a bowl, a sieve, and a little lamp in the courtyard. Only the preparation of tomorrow's stew and flatbread, done before rest, done because morning will come. At last, the basket is lighter. The bowl is heavier. The remaining barley is covered. The meal is set aside where it will be safe from dust and small night creatures. The grinding stone is brushed once more, slowly, in the fading lamplight. The lamp continues for a little while beside the wall. The courtyard holds the faint smell of barley and sesame oil. The dry whisper of grain has ended, and the stone is quiet under the warm night air. Part 2. The Quiet Work of Grinding Grain. Chapter 3. The Miller's Small Room. Ancient Levant. In a small settlement of the ancient Levant, evening comes down over flat roofs, narrow lanes, and pale walls made warm by the day. The hills beyond the settlement are already losing their color. The sky is not dark yet, but the light has grown thin, and the doorway of one house has become a quiet place between inside and outside. Near that doorway, a family keeps a hand mill and a bowl for flour. The room is small and low. It smells of grain, ash, and warm clay. A hearth has been used earlier, and the ashes still hold a little heat under their gray surface. A wooden scoop rests beside a clay bowl. A basket of grain leans against the wall. The packed earth floor is smooth in the places where feet pass each day. Bare feet have left faint marks that no one needs to notice. The mill is not large. It is a household tool, not a place of business, not a machine with noise and urgency. Two stones sit near the entrance, where there is still enough light to see the grain clearly. One stone holds steady. The other is moved by hand. Together they turn kernels into meal, slowly, as the family has done many times before. A woman takes the scoop and measures a little grain. She does not fill the bowl too much. There is no reason to grind more than the household needs. The grain falls with a dry whisper. It scatters lightly over the stone. She gathers the stray pieces with her fingertips and sets the upper stone in motion. The sound begins, a low rubbing sound. Stone against stone, grain between them, evening around them. A man sits near the wall, mending the edge of a strap. He does not speak for a while. A child lifts the wooden scoop and then sets it down again, having no real task, only wanting to touch the things of the household. Another child leans against a rolled mat and blinks slowly. Outside, the street grows dim. A neighbor closes a gate. The small latch makes a soft sound, and then the lane is quiet again. Crickets begin somewhere near the stones outside the house. Their sound is thin and steady, not loud enough to disturb the grinding. The woman moves the stone in patient circles and short strokes. The kernels break down little by little. She pauses to lift the top stone and look at the meal. Some of it is still coarse. Some is fine enough to drift toward the rim of the lower stone. She brushes it into the clay bowl with the side of her hand. The flour is not white like later flour in later kitchens. It is uneven, living close to the grain it came from, with small flecks and different textures. It is meant for simple bread, or a porridge, or a cake baked near embers. It does not need to be perfect. It needs only to be enough, and dry, and gathered before the night deepens. A lamp is brought closer. Its flame is small, and its light touches the wooden scoop, the clay bowl, and the moving hand. The room seems warmer when the lamp is near. The wall glows dully. The bowl waits patiently. The grain under the stone gives way grain by grain, not all at once. Nothing in the room asks for attention beyond the next small motion. After a time, the woman pours the meal through a cloth and shakes it lightly. The cloth is not fine, but it catches the larger pieces. She returns those pieces to the stone. The finer meal rests in the bowl, quiet and pale in the lamplight. A little flour dust clings to her fingertips. She rubs them together slowly, and the dust falls like a faint powder over the edge of the bowl. Outside the door, the lane has almost disappeared into shadow. There is the smell of cooling earth. There is the faint ash smell from the hearth. There is the grain smell, soft and plain, rising from the bowl. A child says something about being tired, and no one answers quickly, because the answer is already known. It is time to finish. It is time to cover the flour. The woman folds a cloth over the bowl. The wooden scoop is placed beside it. The stones are left near the doorway, where they will be found again in the morning or the next evening. The gate outside is closed. The crickets continue. The room smells of grain, ash, and warm clay. The bowl is covered with cloth, and the last flour dust settles where the lamplight fades. Chapter 4. Before bread in Athens. Classical Athens. In Athens, after the agora has closed and the talk of the day has thinned into evening, a household prepares grain for bread. The agora, the public market and meeting place, is no longer full of voices. The footsteps have moved away. The stalls are quiet. In a nearby house, the evening meal is simple, and before it is eaten, there is still the old work of turning grain into meal. A woman in a plain chiton sits near a low stone. A chiton is only a simple garment, folded and fastened, practical for the work of the house. The cloth falls softly around her knees as she reaches for the grain. Wheat waits in a small basket. It is not much, only enough for coarse meal, enough for bread, enough for the household. The basket gives a quiet rustle as she draws it closer. An oil lamp burns nearby. Its flame is steady in the still air. The lamp does not brighten the whole room. It only makes a small circle of light around the stone, the basket, and the bowl waiting beside them. The rest of the room is gentle shadow. A shelf holds olives in a dish. A piece of cheese rests under cloth. Bread from earlier sits near the place where the family will eat. Her children are close by with wax tablets. They have been practicing letters, pressing a stylus into the darkened wax, smoothing it, and pressing again. The letters are not important now. The tablets are nearly forgotten. One child traces a line without looking at it. Another listens to the first movements of the stone. The sound is slow and familiar. A scrape, a pause, a scrape again. The woman's husband brings water from a jar. He pours it carefully into a smaller vessel and sets it near the hearth. He does not interrupt the grinding. There is nothing to announce. The meal will be plain. Olives, bread, a little cheese, and perhaps something warm if the fire is kept low. The house has no need for excitement. The hour itself is enough. The wheat moves under the stone. Some kernels crack with a small dry sound. Some are crushed more slowly, yielding in pieces. The woman shifts the rubbing stone forward and back, then slightly around, following the worn surface below. She has done this often enough that the motion belongs to her hands more than to her thoughts. The stone moves steadily, without importance. It is a necessary sound, and because it is necessary, it does not ask to be noticed for long. A little coarse meal collects near the edge. She brushes it down into the bowl. Flour dust lifts and settles again. It rests on her fingertips. It rests on the dark rim of the bowl. The child with the wax tablet watches the dust and then looks back at the marks in the wax. The lamp flame makes the wax shine faintly. Outside, the street has grown quiet. There are many sounds in Athens during the day, but they are not here now. Here there is water in a jar, a dish of olives, a small piece of cheese, the dry grain, the slow stone, the lamp beside the work, the ordinary rhythm of a household becoming ready for evening. The woman adds another handful of wheat. The grain falls in a small pale heap. She spreads it with her fingers and begins again, forward and back, forward and back. The children grow quieter. The husband lifts the water jar and sets it farther from the doorway. The oil lamp holds its steady glow. The room smells of wheat, olive oil, clay, and faint smoke from the hearth. When enough meal has been made, she sifts it lightly. The larger pieces are kept aside, not wasted, only returned for more grinding or used in a rougher food. The finer meal is gathered into the bowl. It is not a grand thing. It will not be remembered by anyone outside the house. It will become bread, and the bread will be eaten, and the bowl will be used again. The wax tablets are set aside. The olives wait. The cheese waits. The water waits in its jar. The stone rests where it has always rested, patient in the circle of lamplight. In Athens, after the agora has closed, flour dust settles on fingertips, and the quiet household turns slowly toward sleep. Part 3. The Quiet Work of Grinding Grain. Chapter 5. The Rural Greek Quern. Classical rural Greece. Outside the city, in the countryside of classical Greece, evening falls more slowly over fields, low hills, and stone-walled paths. A house stands among small sounds, goats shifting in their pen, a bird calling once from an olive tree, the dry leaves moving slightly as the air cools. Inside the house, grain is being ground in no particular hurry. The quern rests close to the floor. It has been used so often that its surface is not exactly flat anymore. It has a shallow, worn place where grain gathers, breaks, and becomes meal. Beside it sits a bowl with a darkened rim. Beside the bowl is a spindle, put down after earlier work. A little wool still clings to it, soft and pale in the failing light. A woman places wheat on the stone. The wheat is not carefully admired. It is simply there, as household work is simply there. She begins to move the rubbing stone, and the old sound fills the room. The slow scrape, the soft cracking of grain, the faint slide of meal toward the bowl. She leans into the motion only a little, using enough strength, but no more than enough. Near the doorway, someone is mending a sandal strap. The leather has loosened where it meets the sole. A small tool presses into it. The repair is uninteresting, and that is why it belongs to the evening. A man says that the goats should be taken farther tomorrow, if the weather stays dry. Someone else mentions figs, not because figs are important, but because they are ripening on a tree near the edge of the field. Then the conversation fades. The quern continues. Outside, the light over the hills becomes dull and violet. The path by the house is empty. A clay jar stands near the wall, and its shadow grows longer. then disappears into the general dark. Inside, the grain is pushed under the stone again, forward and back, forward and back. The motion is smaller than the landscape outside, smaller than the fields, smaller than the hills, but it is the motion that prepares the household to eat. Fine dust settles on the edge of the bowl. A small line of flour rests where the bowl curves inward. The woman notices it and brushes it down with one finger. The dust leaves a pale mark on her skin. She wipes it on her garment without looking. Then she adds another handful of grain. There is always another small handful until the work is done. Not many, only enough. A child comes inside, carrying nothing in particular. The child stands near the doorway for a moment, watching the stone, the bowl, and the tired hands. Then the child sits down beside the wall and leans against it. The wall is still warm from the day. That warmth passes through the cloth at the child's back. There is no story to hear, and no question to ask. The sound of the quern is almost a story by itself, but not one with events. The spindle rests where it was set down. The sandal strap is nearly mended. The figs remain on the tree outside. The goats settle with small shifting sounds. The weather will be whatever it is in the morning. The grain becomes meal in the bowl. One simple matter follows another, and none of them needs to rise above the quiet. The woman lifts a sieve and shakes the meal through it. It is not a fine sieve, only useful enough to separate the larger pieces. The meal falls in a soft, uneven layer. The larger bits are kept for another pass under the stone. The bowl is turned slightly in the lamplight. A small cloud of flour rises and disappears. The child blinks slowly. The room grows still again. At last, the grinding is finished. The bowl is covered. The quern is wiped with a cloth that has already been used for this many times. The rubbing stone is placed in its familiar position. The sandal strap is mended enough. The spindle will wait for morning. The house has done what it needed to do. Outside, the countryside is nearly dark. Inside, the last flour dust settles on the edge of the bowl. The warm wall holds the child a little longer. The quern stone keeps its silence. Figs, goats, weather, wheat, and the fading light all become part of the same quiet evening. Chapter 6. Flour in the Roman Domus. Rome, early imperial. In Rome, in the early imperial period, an ordinary domus turns towards cena, the evening meal. A domus is a house built inward around its own quiet spaces. The entrance has grown dim. The atrium, the central room open to the sky, holds the last blue light of evening. Below the opening, the impluvium waits, a shallow basin made to catch rainwater. Tonight it holds only a little reflection of the darkening sky. The household is not grand in this telling. It is simply a house with lamps, jars, work, and people moving through their small tasks. Oil lamps glow along the edges of the atrium. Their light is mild, more golden than bright. In the cena, the kitchen, there's the smell of lentils, bread, oil, and a little smoke. The kitchen walls are marked by ordinary use. The air is warm and close. A slave carries grain from storage. The amount is measured, not guessed. A small vessel is filled, leveled, and poured. The grain falls into a bowl with a dry sound. Nearby, another person takes meal that has already been partly ground and begins to sift it. The sieve rises and falls gently. Fine flour slips through. Coarser pieces remain and are set aside. Nothing is wasted if it can still be used. The Roman meal tonight is plain. Bread, lentils, and watered wine. Perhaps there are herbs. Perhaps a little oil. Perhaps a dish set out earlier waits near the wall. But the important thing, if anything can be called important here, is that the flour is ready in time, and the household moves without haste. Cena will come when the small preparations are finished. In the atrium, someone crosses from one side to the other, walking carefully around the impluvium. The water in the basin trembles slightly and becomes still again. A lamp flame appears in the water as a loose golden shape. Then the reflection lengthens, breaks, and reforms. No one watches it for long. The household continues with ordinary movements. A jar is lifted. A cloth is folded. A bowl is placed closer to the kitchen bench. The flour is sifted once more. The hands holding the sieve are patient. They do not shake hard. They let the flour fall as it will, soft and pale, into the waiting bowl. A thin dust rises and settles on the side of the vessel. It settles on the wrist. It settles on the wooden surface where the bowl has been placed. The kitchen keeps its low heat. The walls keep the smell of food and smoke. The slave who carried the grain returns the storage jar to its place. The lid is set down carefully. A small scraping sound comes from clay touching clay. In another room, Someone asks whether the bread should be brought now or later. The answer is quiet. Later, perhaps, or now, if it is ready. The answer hardly matters, because nothing depends on haste. Watered wine is mixed. The wine is made gentle with water, as usual, and set aside. Lentils thicken slowly. Bread waits under cloth. The flour waits in its bowl. The colina holds the warmth of work, and the atrium holds the cool blue remainder of the sky. The house is balanced between the two. Warm kitchen, cool basin, golden lamp, darkening air. Before the meal, the bowl is inspected one last time. The flour is not perfect, but it is enough. The larger pieces have been saved. The finer meal is covered until it is needed. A hand smooths the cloth over the bowl. Another lamp is trimmed. The flame lowers, steadies, and continues. Somewhere beyond the walls, Rome is large and restless, but not here. Here, the Domus grows quieter around Cena. Here, the impluvium catches the last blue light of evening. Here, flour dust settles in the colina, while bread, lentils, and watered wine wait without urgency. The measured grain has become meal. The bowl has been covered. The lamp glows on the wall, and the simple household continues into night. Part 4. The Quiet Work of Grinding Grain. Chapter 7. The Millstone After Supper. Rome, early imperial. After supper, the Roman household becomes quieter. The simple cena is over. Bread has been broken. Lentils have been eaten from bowls. Watered wine has been poured and set aside. There is no more conversation than necessary now, and even the necessary words are spoken softly. In the colina, the kitchen, the warmth remains. The fire has lowered. The air smells faintly of smoke, oil, grain, and clay. A small hand mill or quern rests near the place where the flour was prepared. It has done no remarkable work. It has only helped turn grain into meal, as stones have done in houses for many generations. Now it waits to be brushed clean. A servant takes a cloth and wipes the stone. The movement is slow because the day is nearly finished. Small pieces of grain are brushed from the hollow. Fine flour is gathered from the edge. The cloth grows pale where the dust clings to it. A little dust rises in the lamplight and then sinks again. The stone shows its worn surface, dull and ordinary. Leftover flour is stored in a jar. The jar is not large. It has a rounded shoulder and a narrow mouth. The flour slides down inside it with a faint dry sound. A cloth is placed over the opening. A lid follows. The lid touches the jar with a small, careful sound. Nothing else is needed. The flour will wait in darkness until morning. In another room, the paterfamilias reads a short letter. The paterfamilias is the male head of the household, but tonight the title means very little. He is only a tired man looking over a few lines before sleep. The letter is not urgent. It contains ordinary matters: a shipment delayed, a greeting from someone known, a note about a small debt or a family visit. He reads it once, folds it, and sets it aside. The atrium is darker now. The impluvium holds black water with one lamp reflected in it. From time to time, a drop falls from somewhere above or beside the basin. It touches the water lightly. The reflection trembles. Then the surface becomes still. The sound is so small that it is almost part of the silence. A door latch clicks. Someone has closed a storage room or the entrance to a small side chamber. The sound travels through the house and disappears. A lamp is moved from one room to another. The flame leans as it is carried, then stands upright again when the lamp is set down. The shadows move once across the wall and then settle into their old places. The quern is checked again. There is no more grain on it. No more meal at the edge. No little pieces to be saved. The cloth has done its work. The stone is bare, except for the memory of flour and its roughness. It is left where it belongs, not hidden, not displayed, simply ready for the next use. In the kitchen, a bowl is turned upside down. Another is rinsed with a small amount of water. A wooden spoon is placed near the wall. The storage jar is shifted into shadow. These movements are small and practical. They are almost too quiet to name. Yet each one helps the house enter sleep in order, with nothing left scattered where it should not be. The man with the letter has stopped reading. The servant has finished with the stone. The flour rests in the jar. The door latch is clicked. The water in the impluvium has grown still again after the last soft drop. Outside, the city continues somewhere beyond the walls, but inside this domus, the grain work is finished for the night. The lamp burns lower. The colina is dark at the corners. The quern is clean. The jar is covered. The letter is set aside. The basin holds its quiet reflection. After supper, the household grows still, and nothing more needs to be ground tonight. Chapter 8. Millet near the Wei River, rural Han, China. Near the Wei River, in the countryside of Han, China, a farmer closes his wooden gate as evening cools the yard. The gate is simple, made for use rather than display. It gives a soft wooden sound as it settles into place. Beyond it, the path grows dim between fields. Inside it, the house and yard draw inward towards the small light near the hearth. The roof is thatched, and as the air cools, it creaks a little. The sound is not troubling. It is only the house adjusting to night. Chickens settle near a wall, making small, low sounds before they become still. A basket is lifted and moved closer to the doorway. Inside the basket is millet, small and round. Ordinary food for an ordinary family. The farmer's wife prepares a thin evening porridge. Only a little millet is needed. There is no reason to grind too much. Tomorrow will have its own work, and the next day will have its own work after that. For now, the bowl needs only enough grain to soften in water and warm the body before sleep. She measures by habit, not by ceremony. The millet makes a quiet patter as it falls. Near the hearth is a simple grinding stone, and beside it a mortar with a pestle. A mortar is a bowl-shaped vessel for pounding, and a pestle is the tool held in the hand. They are plain objects, worn by use. Sometimes grain is ground, sometimes it is pounded. Tonight the work is light, only enough to break the millet a little before it is cooked. Their son sits near a low surface with bamboo slips. Bamboo slips are narrow strips used for writing before paper became common. He arranges them for tomorrow's lesson, though his attention is already fading. The slips make a faint clicking sound as they touch one another. He straightens them, then straightens them again. The small order he makes will wait until morning, like the grain that waits in its basket. The millet is poured into the mortar. The pestle lifts and falls. Not heavily, not quickly, just enough to loosen the grain and make it ready for water. A dull sound rises from the mortar. Top, pausa, top. The rhythm is softer than a drum and slower than footsteps. It fits the room because the room is already quiet. The hearth gives a small glow. A clay bowl waits nearby. A pot holds water that will soon be warmed. The smell of millet is faint and dry, different from wheat, different from barley, but just as plain and close to the earth. The farmer sits near the door after closing the gate. He rubs dust from his hands. He listens to the pestle fall and rise. He does not need to speak. Outside, the Wei River is somewhere beyond fields and paths, moving through the darkening land. It is not visible from the house. It does not need to be seen. Its presence belongs to the wider evening, just as the gate, the chickens, the thatch, and the hearth belong to the smaller one. The family remains within its circle of low light. The millet is pounded only as much as needed. The son places one more bamboo slip into line. Then he stops. His hands rest in his lap. The pestle continues for a few more strokes. Top, pausa, top. A little grain dust clings to the inside of the mortar. The woman tips the loosened millet into the clay bowl and brushes the last pieces after it with her fingers. Nothing is rushed. The porridge will cook slowly. Water is added. The pot is set near the heat. The bowl is moved aside. The basket is covered again, because the remaining millet is for another morning or another evening. The pestle is laid across the mortar. Its work is finished for now. The thatched roof creaks once more as the cool air settles over it. The chickens are quiet. The wooden gate is closed. The bamboo slips are arranged for tomorrow. The millet softens near the hearth, and the house holds the small warmth of the evening meal. Near the Wei River, grain dust settles in the mortar, and the last sound of the pestle fades into the rural night. Part 5. The Quiet Work of Grinding Grain. Chapter 9. The Clerk's Quiet Bowl of Grain. Han, China, Provincial Town. In a provincial town of Han, China, a low-ranking clerk returns home in the soft dark after the day's work. He has copied, counted, carried messages, or waited beside someone else's table. His work has not been dramatic. It has been made of small marks, small duties, and long hours of attention. Now he steps into his house and sits near a low lamp. The lamp is trimmed but not bright. It gives enough light for a bowl, a mat, a low writing surface, and the hands moving quietly nearby. His household is measuring grain for the morning meal. A little wheat or millet is taken from storage. It is not much. It falls into a bowl with a dry, familiar sound. The sound is softer than speech and easier to rest beside. Before the clerk writes anything more, he watches the grain being prepared. There is a small mortar. There is a pestle worn smooth by the hand. There is also a simple stone for grinding, depending on what texture is needed and how much work remains before sleep. Tonight, only a little is pounded and sifted. Only enough to set aside for morning. Only enough to make the first meal of the next day begin more easily. The pestle lifts and falls. Top, pausa top. The sound rests under the room like a second heartbeat. Slow and mild. The clerk loosens his outer garment and folds it neatly. He reaches for a bamboo slip, then waits. The slip is narrow and pale. The writing on it from earlier has dried, and a few empty places remain for new characters. He trims the lamp wick. The flame lowers for a moment, then rises cleanly. The circle of light becomes steadier. He grinds ink in a small dish, slowly, with a little water. The ink darkens. The grain in the mortar lightens as husk and meal separate. Two quiet preparations happen beside one another, neither one more important than the other. A hand lifts the sieve. The pounded grain is poured in. The sieve is shaken gently over a bowl. Fine meal falls through. Coarser pieces remain behind. They are returned for a few more strokes of the pestle. The clerk watches the small separation without thinking deeply about it. Some things pass through. Some things wait. Some things are worked a little longer. He writes a character on the bamboo slip, then another. The brush is careful, but the writing is not grand. It is the kind of writing that belongs to records, notes, practice, and ordinary memory. The ink shines for a moment. Then it begins to dry. Beside him, the flour rests in a covered bowl. It too has changed from one state to another, quietly, without asking to be praised. The house is narrow and calm. Outside, a few late footsteps pass in the lane and fade. A door closes somewhere. A dog gives one distant bark and then is silent. The lamp flame leans slightly, then steadies. The clerk sets down his brush and looks at what he has written. It is enough for tonight. The morning will bring more marks, more grain, and more small duties. The remaining grain is covered. The pestle is placed beside the mortar. The sieve is tapped once over the bowl, and a last faint dust falls through. The bamboo slips are stacked carefully. The ink dish is moved away from the edge. The lamp is lowered. All the useful things in the room return to stillness. The clerk sits for a few breaths without moving. The ink dries while the flour rests. The covered bowl waits for morning. The bamboo slip keeps its quiet characters. The low lamp glows beside both of them, and the night gathers without hurry around the household. Chapter 10. All the stones grow still. A slow drift across all 5 settings. Now the evening drifts back across the old world, from one household to another, from one river to another, from one small room to the next. The work has been done in many places, though no one has called it by a great name. Grain has been poured. Stone has moved against stone. Bowls have been filled, covered, and set aside. The old motions have become still. Beside the Nile, the Egyptian grinding stone rests in the mud brick house. The saddle quern is quiet. The rubbing stone lies where the woman's hands left it. The Emmer meal is covered for morning. The child sleeps nearby. The clay jar of beer remains in the corner, and the bread from earlier cools completely on the ledge. Outside, the Nile moves through darkness, carrying no message into the room. In southern Mesopotamia, the courtyard has cooled. The barley basket is covered. The grinding stone has been brushed. The sesame oil lamp burns lower beside the warm wall. The children on the reed mats have stopped shifting. The bowl of barley meal waits where it was placed, ready for tomorrow's stew and flatbread. The dry whisper of grain has ended under the open sky. In the small Levantine house, the hand mill sits near the doorway. The room smells of grain, ash, and warm clay. The wooden scoop is still beside the bowl. The bowl is under cloth. The gate outside has been closed, and the crickets continue in the dark places near the street. No one rises to check the flour again. It is covered, and that is enough. In Athens, after the agora has long been empty, the household lamp glows softly near the stone. The keton is folded around tired knees. The wax tablets have been set aside. The water jar stands in shadow. Olives, bread, and a little cheese have made their quiet meal. The coarse wheat meal has been gathered. The stone that moved without importance now rests without importance too. In the rural Greek house, the quern is silent. The spindle waits for morning. The mended sandal strap lies near the wall. The figs remain outside on the tree. The goats have settled. The child leans into the last warmth held by the wall. Fine dust is no longer rising from the bowl. It is settled, and the evening is settled with it. In Rome, the Domus has grown dark around the atrium. The impluvium holds a small reflection of a lamp, And then even that reflection dims. In the kalena, the flour jar is closed. The hand mill has been cleaned. The letter has been folded and set aside. Water no longer trembles in the basin. After cena, the house has entered the silence that follows small finished tasks. Near the Way River, the Han rural home has quieted under its thatched roof. The wooden gate is closed. The chickens are still. The bamboo slips have the millet has been pounded only as much as needed. The pestle lies across the mortar. The thin porridge warms softly, and the family moves closer to rest. In the provincial town, the clerk's bowl of grain is covered. The ink has dried on the bamboo slip. The brush is still. The lamp has been lowered. The pestle, the sieve, the bowl, and the written characters all wait in their places. The morning will ask for them again, but the morning is not here yet. For now, the night is holding them gently. Across centuries and continents, ordinary people close their eyes. They do not know one another. They do not share the same words for wheat, barley, millet, bowl, stone, lamp, or sleep. But their hands have done similar work. They have lifted grain from baskets. They have listened to the slow scrape of stone against stone. They have brushed flour into bowls and covered what was needed for morning. The stones grow still. The baskets are covered. The lamps burn low. The warm walls cool by degrees. The clay bowls wait beside hearths, in courtyards, in kitchens, in small rooms, and under thatched roofs. Nothing more needs to be ground tonight. Nothing more needs to be measured. Nothing more needs to be remembered before sleep. Gentle outro. The ancient world sleeps now. Starlight rests on the Nile, where the Emmer stone is quiet. It rests on the Euphrates and the old towns of Mesopotamia, where barley waits under cover. It rests on the small settlements of the Levant, where a bowl of flour sits beneath cloth. It rests on the Aegean and the hills of Greece, where the Quern has stopped its slow turning. It rests on the Tiber, where the Roman kalena is dark. It rests on the Way River, where millet has softened near a quiet hearth. Everywhere, the work has ended in the same simple way. Grain has been ground. Bowls have been covered. Lamps have been dimmed. Hands have been washed or brushed clean. Warm walls have cooled. The dry whisper of grain has faded into the soft hush after the last handful. You may let the images drift away now. A basket in shadow. A stone beside a doorway. A clay bowl waiting near the hearth. A little flour dust on quiet fingertips. The same calm sky above every house. Let the old work be finished. Let the stones be still. Let the covered bowls wait for morning. And as the ancient world rests, you can rest too. There is nothing more to grind tonight.